excited to come home. And that's probably the thing that I take the most pride in is coming home. I'm a Pennsylvania boy with a Penn State heart. And I'm so excited to be here.
Alright, so this video is going to be a little bit different. Instead of focusing on the game that had just happened, obviously there are a lot bigger things to talk about. So yes, James Franklin has been fired as Penn State's head coach. This was his 12th year as the coach at Penn State. So he made it through around 11 and a half seasons or so. And I want to start off by thanking Coach Franklin and just acknowledging what he's done for this program. James took over at Penn State at a time where we were just coming into that sanction era, and it wasn't really a hot job at the time, you know, given all the challenges and things ahead that Penn State was going to have to face. It just was not an ideal job. And very, very quickly, a lot quicker than anyone at Penn State or nationally thought, James was able to get the Penn State program back to where it is now, where we're respected and seen as a top team in college football. As I was saying, when he took over, we still had NCAA sanctions, and then he went and won the Big Ten championship in only his third season. So it is really hard to see him go out the way he did, just because he had done so much for this place, and I feel like it'll always be overshadowed by his shortcomings. I don't think it'll ever be fully appreciated by the fan base, or at least the full fan base, for what he's done for this place, just because there were so many of those, you know, let's be honest, there were a lot of bad moments as well throughout his time here with losing and botching some of those big games. It's the irony of always being in those big game situations and those big moments every year because of James Franklin. Like, he is the one that got us there and put us in that position to be in these big moments, but also knowing and the reality being that he would never win us that big game or that big moment or surpass it. So we were there, and all the credit is to him for getting us there, but then also knowing that it just was never going to happen. It's a weird reality. I want to read a tweet from Kevin Horn from the Obligatory Podcast Show, just because I think it really exemplifies James Franklin's tenure and his time here at Penn State. And I don't think I'm going to be able to say it in any better words than what he had said. And this tweet is something he tweeted right after the Northwestern game, so it was right before he actually got fired, but we all saw the writing on the wall. Whether it happens tomorrow morning or in December or next season, it's over. There will be lots of time for the postmortem, but I'll give my first, most raw draft here. James Franklin has always been and will remain forever a complicated figure in Penn State history. No matter how you feel, this moment is not a cause for celebration. I am sad for us and for him. On one hand, the man brought us back to national relevancy faster than anyone thought possible. He modernized the program. The infrastructure will be here for the next guy. But the goodwill ran out long ago. Win even 2 of those top 10s, and it's probably different. The reality is, after the success of 2016, things changed. Every failure to deliver in the big moments became the fans' fault or the administration's fault. He turned total insular. It was anything but his fault. There was no attempt to connect with the community after 2016, and other than a handful of toadies and NIL wackos, the resentment built on both sides amongst the common fan, even as Penn State continued to compile successful 10-win seasons. We were told we were ungrateful Pennsylvania Hicks for not fully appreciating the man for beating Big Ten bottom feeders, but it was all BS all along. The paradox of knowing the big moment would never come, but that James was responsible for the program being in the big moments. James Franklin deserves to walk into any Barnes State College as a second winningest coach in Penn State history and be universally celebrated. He will never have that, and he probably doesn't want that from us now, and he will leave blaming and hating us all. And that's a tragedy given all the good he's done over the last 12 years. But it's over now, and I'm at peace. Now he created complete dysfunction, a wasted year with a roster of veteran 4.5 to 5 stars. The future is scary, but we face it nonetheless. Penn State forever. There's a lot of good points I think that he brings up in that tweet, especially being the fact that once James won that 2016 Big Ten championship, he did start to deflect every shortcoming towards, well, I don't have the facilities, I don't have the money, I don't have this, Penn State doesn't have this, and he would whine and whine about it, and just never, and like he was, to an extent, he was right, but he never took accountability one time for any of that. And what started to happen was the resentment started to build and tension started to build between him and board of trustee members, administration, obviously the fans, media members, and just as a whole, the Penn State community. When James got here at Penn State, he at first said, you know, he wants to be involved in the community. He'll blow balloons at your child's birthday party in State College. And he never ingrained himself in the community like that. His wife never really attempted to do so either. And that was somewhere where he just really had a lot of shortcomings, was not getting involved in the community as much as you would imagine. And so this all led to that tension buildup between him and pretty much all of Penn State. And especially with donors, there's a lot of money that he was never really able to get from, think about Terry Pegula. He doesn't really give a lot to Penn State football. And the reason is because James completely botched the relationship with him. I honestly don't even know all the details about that, but you don't have to be a genius to see that that is the truth. I mean, Terry Pegula never really gave to Penn State football. He's given to Penn State hockey and other sports and the university as a total. But there's other donors like that who are some of Penn State's, you know, biggest donors with the deepest pockets, who never really bought in fully to committing and giving a lot of money that they had to the football program because they didn't buy into James, or they didn't believe in James for whatever the reason. And that resentment that he built and that tension he built, I think, had a lot to do with it. There's also the side of him never mentioning Joe Paterno ever. And, you know, I know people have mixed thoughts on that, right? There's a big scandal that happened. So I'm not saying he should have or shouldn't have. But what I'm saying is that was definitely something that rubbed a lot of older alumni and donors the wrong way. He never really gave that acknowledgement, even in, you know, small ways. He never really did that. And that, I know that's something that bothered a lot of alumni. So saying all that, to me, when I found out, I was definitely sad, just because for most of my life, James has been the coach. I've always believed in him. I know he's had a lot of shortcomings. There's a lot of times I doubted him and was upset with him, and, you know, like any other fan after you lose those big games. But at the end of the day, I knew that he's a great man. He's a great father. He really cares about the program, and he cares about doing things the right way. And that's something that I always respected. And I knew that he wanted to go out there and win a national championship and bring Penn State as high as he could, more than anyone. I mean, James grew up in Pennsylvania. He grew up rooting for Penn State. He's a Pennsylvania kid through and through. This was his dream job. He said that Penn State is his dream job. He wouldn't have wanted to coach anywhere else. And it's just sad kind of how it all ended. His last moments in Beaver Stadium was probably the most toxic it's ever been. Just a crowd of boos and yelling, screaming, throwing things on a gloomy day after a really bad loss to Northwestern. And you could tell that he knew that was it. The way he was standing there and looking around the stadium, he knew that was it. And it's sad. It's a really sad way for him to have gone out, you know, even though if he was going to get fired at the end of the year, maybe he could have gone out on a nice win against like Rutgers or, you know, whoever we play at the end of the season. And it, you know, it feels a little bit better. It's not the way it ended today. But saying all of that to also say that I do think it was time for him to go. Talking about results on the field, he won us a lot of games, right? Like, there's no doubting that he's a really good head coach and he did a lot for us, but he was never able to get us over the hump. I think it was the fan base really stopped believing it. I think a lot of players at this point stopped buying into it. I think a lot of donors had started to not buy into it anymore, because it was just the same thing year after year after year after year, and even multiple times a year when we play teams with a pulse like Michigan and Ohio State in the same year, or last year we played Ohio State, we played Oregon, we also played Notre Dame, and all of those we lost. So things just grew tired, right? Like it just became apparent that I don't think he's going to get over that hump. And I think it also became apparent to him. Like I think you can see it in him. He started to lose faith to an extent. He started not believing it himself. And then combining that with everything else I said about the tension being built up with the fan base, with the donors, with the media, with the community as a whole, the administration, it all kind of came together. And then you have a season that you bring back all of these players. You dish out a bunch of NIL money to bring back players, go get new portal receivers. You make Jim Knowles the highest paid defensive coordinator in college football history. That's the guy that you wanted. You have the offensive coordinator that you wanted. You have alignment. You have everything you have been complaining about and asking for all these years, saying, I can't do it because you guys won't give me this. Well, he had it all this year. And not only did he have the shortcomings and do the same thing that typically happens going 10-2 and losing to Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, whoever, we lost to UCLA, who was winless at the time and had just fired their head coach, and we lost to Northwestern at home. It was just time for it to happen. I am upset about it. I don't know how to feel. It's scary. There's a lot of emotions just, following the program so closely. I don't know James Franklin, obviously. He has no idea who I am, but it feels like I know him, right? Like I watch all these press conferences. I hear things about him, hear how he interacts with people, hear how players and families and everyone talks about him. And it's sad, right? Like, how bad he wanted this and how good of a guy he was. And so on a human level, it's sad. And something that's been confirmed since this has all happened is that after the semifinal appearance last year, this summer, James had thought that he deserved some contract negotiations. Essentially, he thought he deserved more money. And Pat Kraft essentially told him no. And I think he probably told him, if you put the product and the expectations out on the field this year that are expected, given all the alignment, all the money, all the resources, everything you've been asking for, we just got you, then you'll probably get that extension. And if not, I don't know if he told him he'll be fired or if there's going to be serious discussions or what. But if I had to guess, there was some sort of conversation like that could have went on. But on another note, there's another part of me that is excited, right? Like, it's going to be very interesting the next couple of weeks and months. There's obviously a lot of players who are going to leave the team. There's a lot of guys that are committed right now that have already been uncommitting, and that's just what's going to happen. That's expected when you fire a head coach. So it sucks, but it's going to happen, and everything will be okay. Aside from Franklin, there is one major thing that happened during the game that I do want to speak on, which is Drew Allar getting hurt and ultimately being out for the season, which also ends his career at Penn State. I know a lot of people have different opinions about Drew and how good of a quarterback he is or isn't, but the kid put his all into being the quarterback for Penn State. He cared so much. It was pretty evident by the things that I've seen online and the way he talks. And yeah, similar to Franklin, he wasn't perfect. He had his shortcomings, but that kid wanted it more than anyone. I will always be thankful for him for putting his all into this program. That's really all you can ask for. The results, of course, you want the results to be as good as they can be, but at the end of the day, these are kids, and if he's putting his all into it, that's what it's all about. I feel really, really bad for Drew. Similarly for him, this is a horrible way for him to go out and end his career, and also now he's injured as, the season's going to eventually end and the NFL draft's going to come. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I feel really bad for him, and I will always appreciate him for what he's done for Penn State. Nonetheless, Ethan Grunkmeyer is going to be the starting quarterback, at least for now, going forward, with Coach Terry Smith being the interim head coach. I just got done listening to Pat Kraft's press conference this morning, and Terry Smith also spoke. I think they were both super inspiring. Terry Smith is a Penn State alumni. He played for Joe Paterno. He's coached at Penn State the entire James Franklin tenure. He's a guy that's going to keep this team together. He's going to rally this team back together. There's no better fit, and he definitely deserves this. But here we are. I mean, it's funny to think back to just a few weeks ago. We were playing Oregon, taking them to double overtime. We were sitting as a number 3 team in the country. Even thinking back to the videos I made just a few months ago to start, right? To begin this channel, I'm talking about, will Penn State go 12-0? I predicted that we'll go 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State and then make a run in the playoffs. And I believed, along with a lot of other people, we were going to make it to the national championship, or at least have like a pretty good run in the college football playoffs. And it's not that that's not going to happen. It's just like how far off that was from happening is just crazy, to be honest, that we're here. But this is the reality. This is something that Penn State is not used to. Like, we had Joe Paterno as the coach forever, and then James Franklin as the coach for a very long time as well. So we're not used to this. This is something Penn State fans and administration, everyone is not used to. So this is uncharted territory for us Penn State fans. But if there's one thing that the sanction era and, everything that this school has been through, if there's one thing that we've learned, it's that Penn State is strong and that we can bounce back from anything. So if we didn't, get killed from those sanction periods and kind of when we probably should have, there's no reason for me to think that right now with Pat Kraft, with the NIL we have, with, the hype around this program, that we're not going to come out of this better, stronger, and be more than fine. James Franklin didn't make Penn State. He helped elevate us back to where we were, but Penn State is still Penn State. And Penn State was a strong brand and a contender before Franklin got here, and it will continue to be after. There's going to be some bumps in the road. Honestly, it might get a lot worse before it gets better, but this is the situation we're in. There's going to be a lot to talk about for it. I will definitely be talking about it. I'm excited to see what happens in the future, and we're going to go from there. So yeah, I mean, this is crazy, to be honest. I didn't think I would be making this video mid-season, especially not right after the UCLA and Northwestern game. But here we are. It's, again, it'll always be Penn State. We'll be back from this better than ever. I'll talk to you guys next week. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Bye.